Happy New Year 2022. How's it going so far? I'm here in Grand Rapids, Michigan. My name is Laura Bergels, and we're here today to have a fun office hour talking about, of all things, the Lake Superior State University Banished Words List. Now, this is all tongue in cheek, but there are a lot of words that we use that we get sick of. And what Lake Superior State University decided to do is publish a list, and it does it every single year. It takes in suggestions from people, and I hope that you'll comment on some of your suggestions as to what words are we so sick of we just don't want to hear them anymore. One of my words would be if that's at all possible. We thought we would start our New Year off right by going to the dog park and working it all out this morning. Maybe we have, but maybe we haven't. So what we'll do today is discuss those 10 first words that have been added to the banished words list. These are words that we are sick of hearing. And what I'd like you to do is say, what about those words? Are we sick of hearing them, or are we not sick of hearing them? Because picking the right words to use is really important for making the emotional impact. And I see we have our first responder here, who is Milamo. Hello, Milamo, and welcome. Unprecedented. She's sick of that word. We're going to ask for what your words are in a few minutes. First, I want to add my guests to the show. And the first guest that I'm going to add is my longtime friend, Scott Smith. I first met Scott at the gym, so we were gym friends. And now that he no longer goes to a gym, and neither do I, we are not friends anymore. So welcome, Scott Smith.
Yeah, true story. Welcome.
And for my next guest, we have been friends and colleagues for, I hate to say this, but decades. Sorry, and you won't believe it because she doesn't even look like she's 20 years old. It's crazy. But she is Elizabeth Goede. She is the president of Ratliff Communications, and she is a branding expert. So let's welcome Elizabeth.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Let's do this. Let's have some fun with this. Hi, Dean. What? Dean says, I laughed this morning reading the list, Laura, since sadly I checked off many as I've used. Dean, hi, thanks for showing up. Weirdly, Elizabeth said the same thing.
Yeah, it's embarrassing, actually. And apparently one or two of these, they've vanished more than once. So I guess I've been using these inappropriate words for a long time.
Well, let's start out with the first word that we have on our list. And the first word, the first banished word, and tell us what you think of this word. Does it need to be banished? Has it been used too much? The first word on the list, number 10, is supply chain. What do we think of supply chain?
I think it's a scapegoat term. I think it's like anything that's going wrong right now, it's just supply chain. It's become an actual just term, not even used appropriately in some cases.
Well, I think that people aren't acknowledging the complexity of the supply chain now. But it's just like it's always, any shortage is supply chain related. Either they couldn't make enough or decided that they didn't want to distribute them in certain places. The demand exceeds the supply. It's going to be a supply chain issue. Laura and Elizabeth probably remember there were shortages of pet rocks one time and Cabbage Patch dolls. But I think that it's like being used as Elizabeth says, as a scapegoat for, oh yes, it is technically a supply chain issue and things aren't showing up on shelves or wherever, but it's often very organically demand related. And it's something that's been true for time immemorial.
My take on this is whenever I get the Lake Superior State University list at the beginning of the year, when I teach my course in creativity at the university, we read a wonderful book called Made to Stick by Chip and Dan Heath, and we talk about semantic stretch, and we look at those words. And I say, okay, for a very tongue-in-cheek, I say, for your first assignment, you can't use any of the words on the list. Well, I've got students that are in supply chain management as their major or a class that they're taking, and they're like, no, what are we supposed to do now? But let's take a look at that word supply chain. It kind of means everything at this point. It's all physical items and the way they get there. So it just seems that this word does need to be a bit more specific right now as to what it actually could be. So that's my thought about that.
Well, I mean, one thing that I would add is that we used to build cars without computer chips.
Right.
That's like one of the reasons that cars are in short supply, is that computer chips are in short supply because of all the people that went to online schooling, work from home, cloud storage. That ate up a lot of the computer chip market. Factories were idled because of exposure to viruses. But I mean, Henry Ford would kind of laugh at us right now, I'm sure.
Well, let's move on to our next word, coming in at number 9. Number 9, and the word that we're looking for at number 9 is you are on mute. And here's the thing. Every year, we go through the top 10 list, and then we go to the words that we wish were on the list that aren't on the list. And guess what? Last year, this was Scott, Elizabeth, and I. This was our number 1 phrase that we did not want to hear in 2021. So here it made the list in 2022.
I made an effort this year to actually say, we can't hear you, just so I didn't have to say you're on mute. And then you discover people are on double mute.
What's double mute?
It's like where you mute your microphone and you mute yourself through the software. So then, even when they're on mute, they're still on mute if they only unblock one of them.
Oh, so they can like turn off their microphone physically, or just turn it off at the operating system or at the video application. I guess you could triple mute yourself. But my thing about mute, I don't like that phrase. But what's the replacement for it? Is it mics on everybody, or?
Here's another question that I have about inclusion. I had some people that are nonverbal in a meeting, and that word mute is offensive to them.
Oh, right.
So the other thing that's part of our culture is if you look at your television remote, if you look at your Zoom interface, it all has that word mute, and they don't like being confronted with that word all the time. So not only has it reached semantic stretch, I'm also concerned about it being a non-inclusive word. What do you think about using you're on mute? Are you sick of that word? Is it offensive? Do we need to get rid of that word on that phrase for good at this point? So let us know in the comments. And we can move on to number 8 on the list. And number 8 on the list is new normal. New normal.
Yeah. I don't know. Isn't every day new? I mean, does anybody live the same day twice? I also don't want to be normal, I think I've decided.
I don't remember if it was last year's Banished Words discussion or another discussion that the three of us had, but that was one that we didn't like then. And so, it makes me feel like an influencer. We talk about it, and then it gets banished the next year. But my point is that things have never, ever been normal. I mean, just like any given point of time, just like people have routines, people with different income levels, different levels of abilities in certain contexts, their normal is very different than ours. So we're going to wake up tomorrow to more and or fewer challenges, and that's going to be true for the rest of our lives. I never liked new normal because I never liked normal.
Mm-hmm.
Dotine is saying, boring? What is normal? And like Elizabeth said, why be normal?
Yeah,
Thanks
exactly.
for your comment, Dotine. Appreciate that. Well, let's move on to the next word on the list. It's deep dive. How do we feel about doing a deep dive?
So I'm really guilty of this word, I think. And I don't even know where I picked it up because I think your image here, Laura, that you have on screen right now is exactly accurate, right? We're not actually diving into the water. I don't even know. Does anybody know where that originated from?
I don't.
It just, yeah, it just kind of showed up one day, and then, you know, there we are. And one thing that I would take a look at deep dive for is you have to go through a lot of shallows before you can get any kind of depth on any kind of subject. And a lot of people want to just wade through a lot of shallow, and they call it a deep dive.
Right.
Right.
That's a good point, actually.
And I think the analogy is more like digging into earth, and which, you know, I think, you know, going for a deep dive, as long as you're, you know, properly equipped and you do a, you know, a safe level rate of ascent, you're probably going to be okay. But I mean, like, you know, digging in earth is that, oh, this is great, this is nice, easy soil. Then you hit clay, and then you have a root that you got to chop out and things like that. That's what, you know, the deep dives seem more like to me. They seem more like deep digs.
Well, what do you think? Do you think deep dive needs to go away, or is this one that we should be keeping for 2022? Let us know in the comments, and we'll flip on to the next one, which is circle back.
Never like that. Somebody said that to me.
What's circle back?
I don't know. I just like I heard there was a couple of years ago where I was looking for some consulting work, and I kept getting callbacks, and people would say they were going to talk to somebody else and circle back with me. What does that mean?
Right.
Chasing
does that mean they're spinning in a circle? I mean, like when you think about it very sort of in a literal sense, like what does that mean? Like you're going to take a lap and come back?
Yeah, right. And it's more like you know, the shuttle run that you do in school where you go straight line down and straight line back. I don't see where the circling is. You may deviate a little bit going to HR and hiring managers and things like that.
To me, my mental imagery is chasing your tail when you're a dog. I am so
Yeah.
Or the snake eating itself.
Yeah. So yeah, I can agree with this one. Circle back needs to go. Let us know what you think about that. Circle back, yes or no? Do we keep that one, or do we get rid of that? As a matter of fact, I think somebody had that. Yep, Sharon Incorvati. She is a graphic designer at NASA Glenn. And in this pre-work, before we did this, we had people say, what do you think is going to be on the list? And this was her number one word that we need to get rid of. So thanks for your comment, Sharon Incorvath of NASA at Glenn. For our number 5 word, it's asking for a friend.
It's so like on the nose, right? I mean, clearly it's just a guise for I don't want to publicly admit that I'm asking this, because otherwise you would say a friend of mine needs, or you know what I mean, or by name, or
yeah. The lack of specificity of asking for a friend. I would just say, you know what? I'm asking about this hemorrhoid cream for Scott. I would be very specific about what I was asking for. I wouldn't be saying, hey, tell me about your favorite hemorrhoid cream. I'm asking for a friend, because everybody knows, oh, that would be me. It's like, I'm asking for Scott Smith.
Well, and I think even if it is true that a friend initiated the request, the fact that you're going, I'm asking for a friend, that means you don't know what the answer is either. So you're asking for the friend and yourself.
Right. Okay.
But I think more likely it's just like that's, you know, a guise for I don't know, and I'm afraid to publicly admit I don't know.
Well, in 2022, I'm just warning you, I'm eliminating asking for a friend, and I will name names.
Asking for a former gym friend who's no longer my friend.
I'm asking for someone who's no longer my friend. All right.
Just very quickly, I once I at a jazz show in Chicago. There was some people that I had seen this group with before, and second time I wasn't really hanging with them anymore. But I went to the band and I said, there were some people that I'm no longer talking to that will be very jealous that I'm shaking your hands right now. So yes, I've done that.
Oh God.
Anyway,
Number 4 on the list. Moving on. That being said,
I have used that term in writing. I don't think I've ever said it, and I don't say it that often, but I think that anybody that perseverates on a phrase is going to drive you nuts. You know, the people that say that being said in one of the other terms that's coming up in a little bit. I don't like that one, but I have used it, and I don't have any animosity towards it like I do some of the phrases.
well, I think one of the things that we can say that we don't like about that being said is it doesn't need to be said.
Yeah, it's superfluous.
It means I've already said a lot, and now I'm going to close with the thing that I wanted to say in the first place.
Yeah.
Why didn't you just start with that? And why use this phrase? And it gets even worse. We could really go down a rabbit hole and say, you could just say, that said. Why do we need to shove a being in the middle of the whole thing? So I don't like this phrase so much.
You know, it's interesting that you say that it gets used in writing, Scott, because when this phrase came up on the list, I was thinking back on, you know, how much do I use this phrase? And I was thinking when I write an email, I instinctively want to put this phrase in. And usually when I reread it, I think that it's a little bit of like an aggressive phrase. You know what I mean? It puts like an emphasis on the thing that sometimes can be negative. So I usually end up deleting it out. But I do wonder now, reflecting back, if I say it in the verbal word where I can't edit it out.
Well, and like Dotine said, that being said, it's a funky way to bring things to a close.
Mm-hmm.
I agree. I totally agree. So yeah, get it out of your writing for sure. And it makes the directive more concise. So, very good. Well, let's move on to our next one. Number 3, coming in at number 3 is at the end of the day. I just saw Elizabeth go, oh, and hold her head.
I'm so guilty of this one. I just cannot stop. I know that I shouldn't use it, but I just cannot even commit to not using it because I think I use it that often.
Uh-oh. So you don't want to get rid of it?
I just don't think I can.
This was the phrase I was alluding to when I said the phrase that's coming up, which I dislike a lot. And Laura, since I haven't talked about sports or superheroes yet, I'm going to talk about radio comedy really quickly. There's a very classic scene from the Jack Benny show where the character was known for being cheap and parsimonious and held up, and they said, okay, all right, pal, your money or your life. And there's dead air for like 20, 30 seconds. And then the thug says, well, and Jack Benny goes, I'm thinking it over. And it's like, I did a pause like that in a meeting one time because I was like presenting and I said, at the end of the day, and I just like what I felt like was doing this for saying it. Like I just paused and somebody said, are you okay? And I said, I just said at the end of the day. And I swore I would never do it.
This is really important to know because there are a lot of phrases that I don't like either, but because we're human animals and we're social creatures, we start using them over and over again, even though we tell ourselves, let's not do that. We do it.
Right.
So I can get behind making this one go away. I hope I haven't said it, but maybe I have. I don't know. What do we think about at the end of the day?
Well, right now.
Let's help Elizabeth out here and say, what is your replacement word for at the end of the day?
It probably would be basically, which also is not a word that should be used in the way that I use it.
I just skip it altogether.
Yeah, I was going to say,
recommendation would be.
If you're writing, put a space there. And,
well, I'm not going to put it in writing. It's definitely a verbal phrase for me.
Right.
And it's used for emphasis on usually a frustration.
Oh, so it's probably a signal of either contempt, maybe, or...
Well, one of the things that I observed, I started hearing it a lot during the .com era, and that's like a period where the days started not to ever end. You know, prior to that, it was like... companies published phone directories, but those were used for like social calls. You're like, hey, you want to go to the Cubs game or something like that. Or, back when, a work emergency, it had some sort of like lofty status, just I don't want to bother them at home. People rarely got bothered at home. But when you start to have like text messaging and instant messages, there was always, you there? You have time for a call? Or can you just take a look at this? And then people are texting you to see if you got the email about the voicemail they left you. And the days haven't ended since then.
Yeah, it's actually sad but true that we're still, at the end of the daying it. Let's move on to number 2. Number 2 is one that I don't want to see go away. I actually like this one, and let me know if I'm wrong or right about this. But the phrase is at number 2, no worries. I like that phrase.
Yeah, I don't want it to go away either. I use it a lot.
Okay, I do too. And what problem do people have with no worries?
I don't think it's always used in a genuine fashion.
Mm-hmm.
I think if I were to say there actually would be no worries, but I've seen no worries in emails, and then upon follow up, you find out they had lots of worries.
I've never encountered. I say no worries, and I appreciate it when people tell me no worries.
Mm-hmm.
Or my other favorite is no problem. I like that one too, and a lot of people don't like it. The reason I like it is because sometimes I'll make an ask and I wonder, am I being a problem? And when somebody says no problem, I'm like, oh, that's really nice to know. I feel that I've been put at ease. And I really like no worries and no problems. But apparently, I'm a minority in this one.
Well, I think do you think that it actually has more to do with how people use it? So for me, my use of no worries usually comes from, a colleague or something like that being, apologizing, or you can tell that they're stressed about something. And I want to put them exactly what you were saying, Laura. I want to put them at ease to let them know, like, this does not warrant being upset about at this point. You should not be worried about this. You know what I mean? There is resolution to it. So maybe people are using it in a more ambivalent way where, it's not necessarily being used to tell someone that they shouldn't worry.
Okay, I'm going to try to parse this, but it is often used to respond to, is this okay? I assume they mean it's fine. It's too indefinite to figure out. Just respond to the comment or question specifically. And Sue Griffey asked that, and I think that's a pretty good observation.
Yeah, that's great, Sue.
Or Sue said, no worries. Really good observation, Sue. I mean, we're having fun with this, obviously. And Dotine comes in with, Dotine, it's no worries. It's a phrase from Australia. Right? I thought that too. It sounded very Aussie to me.
Yeah.
And I really like that an Australian phrase is coming in, because a lot of what we are saying as our banished words list are pretty much Americanisms.
Mm-hmm.
And Americans end up, for better or for worse, it starts co-opting a lot of other English-speaking countries. So these are all Americanisms, and a lot of these are words that we just don't want to see spread so much. Well, to be honest, we don't. I think we have to move on to our number 1 word, and our number 1 word on the list is, I think we can all, I abuse this one. I have to admit it. It's wait, what? Who else besides me abuses, wait, what? Or am I alone here?
I abuse it.
Okay. Wait, what?
It has
just do what with an exclamation point and a question mark, and maybe that's my form of wait, what?
Mm-hmm.
I think it has comic value because it implies that you're surprised when you're not really surprised. And
that baby is so cute.
I mean, that baby just kind of, it is like what you just said, the whole, the comic value of it, the surprise and the kind of the delight of it. I'm not really sure I want this one to go away. But yeah, I kind of see that it's getting a bit saturated,
Mhm.
and that wait, what is
Mhm.
being used rather a lot here in America. I like it though. I'm kind of sad to see it go away, but I'll see what I can do about cleaning that one up. Well, those are our top 10 words, but now we get to the fun part, is the words that didn't make the list that we really think should be on the list. So, chime in if you would in the comments about what words need to be on the list that aren't on the list. Okay? Let's see what's coming in the comment. Let's see. I'll have one that I put on the list. We'll start out with one that just drives me nuts and I wish it was on the list, which is, look, I get it. Have you heard that a lot? I've heard that way too much this past year, and I wanted this to be on the list this year.
Do you use it? Because I don't want to say what I'm going to say if it's going to be offensive. I think the problem with that is it feels aggressive.
Yeah.
It feels super negative, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that definitely should go away purely from that perspective.
It's also the body language that goes along with "look, I get it" that creeps me out. It's always like this: "Look, I get it." And their hands are up. They're almost like stopping you. "Look, I get it." And then here's the other weird thing about it: after whoever says it, my head is going, "Okay, they get something. They're getting me. They're getting what I'm thinking. They're trying to tell me they know what I'm thinking." Without the benefit of asking me what I'm thinking. Oh, wow, let's see what they're going to come up with. And what they come up with is something that I was not thinking at all.
Well, and I just, even without the I get it, I always thought that look was an attempt to minimize the person that you're engaging. And just like look, means you haven't been paying attention or you don't get it.
Like Dotine says, that word look puts one in one's place, doesn't it? Holy cow. Dotine is also nominating this for a word that needs to be on the list. Let's sync up.
It reminds me of Palm Pilots, right? Like when you used to like sync between devices.
I was really thrilled with that when we had the Palm Pilots for the first time. I love doing that. I'm like, yay, no more business cards. This is the future. We're going to do this. And we were really in it and we'd sync our things, but that kind of went away and we don't do that anymore. So yeah, let's sync up can go away.
The future ain't what it used to be.
Yeah. Here's a phrase that was suggested by my friend and colleague, Stan Phelps. Stan Phelps writes the Pink Goldfish series. And one phrase that he wants to see go away in 2022, and I heartily agree with this one, is RTO. I have not heard people say it out loud, but I've seen it so much in the media. It means it's an acronym, and we always say, no more acronyms. We don't need to invent more acronyms. It stands for Return to Office. Have you seen this one?
No, and I don't like it. I don't even like the phrase. I don't know.
If I'm just looking at that, I'm trying to figure out what sort of affliction this is. I mean, ours respiratory.
Oh, yeah, right. Or like, I don't know. It feels very like masculine too for some reason.
The first few times I saw it, I had to look it up, and what you're saying is kind of true. When I saw RTO, I thought, does this mean robot? Is it some kind of weird? I just didn't know what it was, and every time I see it, the first 3-4 weeks that I saw it, I always said, "What the heck is that?" So yeah, I hate acronyms in the first place, so this one has to go. Gonna go to our comments and see what people say. I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Oziama Ini. Oziama, we always use sync up in our daily stand-up meetings. Yeah, it's said a lot. What would you say instead if you couldn't say sync up? And how do you feel about that word? And how do you feel about using that every day? Is it useful for you or not? So I'd like to hear your comments on that and what else could be said. Miriam says, I find myself using wait, what? When I'm not 100% focused on what the speaker was
That is so true. It's like all of a sudden you hear something and you're like, I definitely was not listening because whatever you said does not sound right. I might use that with my husband.
Oh, good one. Good one. What other phrases that you want to see banished for 2022?
Laura, I think we had one in the very beginning as well.
In the very beginning? Oh, you're going to try to make me go wade through it and try to find it? Okay.
No, I think it was one of the first comments, actually.
Okay. Yeah, you're right, actually. Why don't I go back all the way back up and see what we can get here? Oh, yeah. Here we go. Unprecedented by Malimo Mutinta. I hope I pronounced your name correctly. But unprecedented, how do we feel about that word?
I think it's the same bucket as the new normal. There's nothing normal. So pretty much everything we ever endure is unprecedented.
Mm-hmm.
But you know what? When you look back, is that really true? You know, I mean, there was like a plague. Like there have been a lot of really massive things that have happened. I mean, maybe it's just unprecedented for the people who are alive right now. I'm not sure. I agree. I think we should get rid of it.
I agree too. I'm kind of sick of it. It's been overused a lot. And just one really quick story is I love my next door neighbor. She's 92 and as feisty as anybody can be, Charlene. And she's lived through the Great Depression, World War II, and now a pandemic. It's like she's been through stuff, man.
Right.
So none of this is unprecedented for her. She was just there at the tail end of the flu pandemic as well, as my father was born in the flu pandemic. So, you know, none of the weird things that are happening to us, you know, I can't remember the exact quote, but it's like, there's nothing new under the sun. And I think that was a Shakespeare quote. Here's another one from Ozioma Ane. The Great Resignation is all over the place. Okay. Yeah, that one needs to go away. 100% agree.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We're all going, Oh, Lori Jones Tarakowski. Game changer.
Yeah. Is this a game we're playing?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, maybe it is. Be nice to know the rules.
Yeah. I don't get that. What game are we playing and what? I don't even understand this one.
Mm-hmm. Me either.
Lori also had a comment about the new normal. This is a phrase that, you know, my mother used to use. Why can't we be a normal family? What does that mean?
Right.
We weren't a normal family for a lot of reasons. But nobody's family is more normal. I think people my age, I think we're kind of, you know, crafted by the, you know, our opinions are influenced by the families we saw in sitcoms.
Yeah.
And there was nothing normal about those families at all when you looked at how messed up they were. And over time, too, families are becoming increasingly messed up in our own unique and lovely ways.
I never had a celebrity make an appearance in my household, like on just about every sitcom, like Davy Jones or Joe Namath shows up for some unknown reason.
Right. Or even Archie Bunker's place and Sammy Davis Jr. shows up. And that's going to happen? I'm not so sure. Not really. Yeah. Speaking of which, there was another nomination, and it's off here. The word right. And I just realized that I used that twice. I am a big abuser of this, where you go, right? Right. Right. I am a right abuser. Should we get rid of the word right? Do I say it too much?
I don't know that I've noticed you saying it too much.
I don't remember Laura saying it that much, but I mean, I know people that say it, and it's like, okay, fine. I prefer right to, I know, right?
Oh, I do that one too. I know, right? I say that all the time. I'm exaggerating, but I oversay that. And maybe
It's endearing, Laura.
What?
It's endearing.
Oh.
I first encountered that in a book, and I said, yep, I know, right? And it's just like, was that a challenge? Well, no, you don't know. Like the character was looking for affirmation.
I don't know. I'm kind of looking at you. You think it's endearing, but I was just thinking it was a human failing of mine. And that perhaps I'm simply looking for approval, and maybe 2022 is my year to stop saying, right?
Mine is, do you know what I mean?
Oh, you do
I
that
just
one?
can't stop using it. And I try, I catch myself, and I feel shame.
I mean, that's pretty common though. Like, people say, you know what I'm saying, or
You know
whatever.
what and
yeah, exactly.
the other one that I've heard almost
Are you with me?
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
The speaker will stop themselves very frequently. He said, does that make sense? So that's kind of on a par with, do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I've heard that a lot. I use it from time to time. I don't think I overuse it. I might. I don't know. Ming Lee, metaverse.
Yeah.
I think we're going to hear a lot more of that, unfortunately, Ming Lee, over the next year, 2 years, especially as, things ramp up in the metaverse and virtual world building that's happening. So as much as we don't want to hear it, we're probably going to hear a lot more of that.
We could start a campaign to get rid of it now.
I mean, that's been getting a lot of media in the past, 9 months or so, and I was confusing it with multiverse, and that's what I was kind of hoping with the parallel worlds and all that, where the superheroes on the other universe have gray temples like me, and I thought that I could be, elevated to some sort of supernatural status or something.
We'll elevate you, Scott.
What's that?
We'll elevate you.
We'll elevate the other world. So a couple of comments. I say that to mentees. Does that make sense? Should I say instead, do you get what I mean? I think they're all kind of on a par with each other. And I will often say that when I see puzzled looks, like if I'm looking at students and they're going, I'm like, does that make sense? And if they go, yeah. This is one that relies rather a lot on body language and tone of voice. Mm-hmm. Because I'll talk and I'm seeing blank looks on the face and I'm like, oh, does that make sense? And in my head, I'm thinking that did not make sense. I'm not hitting home here. Let me see how I can re-describe this or make this more clear. Maybe I really need to rethink whether I asked that question, because what is making me ask that question is the fact that it looks like somebody isn't understanding that question or that thing that I'm explaining. Is that a thought? Is that valid?
Does that make sense? Right?
Okay, see, we go down that hole. or this another one. It's a LinkedIn user who's saying perfect.
I have a feeling that's my friend Anita, because we were talking about this yesterday.
Mm-hmm. Perfect.
Mm-hmm.
That's been used rather a lot.
And what does it, it's something you probably can't ever achieve, right?
Yeah, which devalues the term.
I paired, whenever I say perfect, and I don't think I use perfect too often, but maybe I started doing this too much, was chef's kiss along with perfect. I would do, ooh, perfect, chef's kiss, Maybe chef's kiss is something that I need to kiss goodbye in 2022. We've got more. Work-life balance. Our LinkedIn user wants to eliminate that one. I can agree with this because right now there's no work, there's no life. It's all together. There's no balancing. They're not two separate things. It's all life all the time. When you're working, you're alive.
It's analogous to the metaverse with how blended it is.
Or the supply chain.
Yes. But it's like I was saying, work never ends because there's so many ways that people can find you.
Yeah.
What do you think can be substituted? Sure. I need a laughing RXN. What does that mean? What's an RXN? I don't get it. I don't get it.
She's asking for a friend.
Oh, okay, got it. I got it.
She knows from the gym.
A friend from the gym. I'm asking for a friend from the gym. His name's Scott. He has hemorrhoids. Another LinkedIn user, wellness.
HIPAA violation. I hate that term too because it's used incorrectly.
Right, HIPAA violation. That was okay. That's one that we can put on the list. I've even heard people say hippo violation, like they're violating hippos. I really like that one. Wellness, and I fully use this word. Yes, it's overused and abused. The definition is blurring. Correct. Yeah, and so here's a concept too. When you say words like wellness and other words that I don't like culture, and authenticity, those are words that have been overused. There's something that's called a floating signifier or an empty signifier. You can look that up on Wikipedia or whatever. But that is a word that there is no one agrees exactly on what that word means. So when somebody's talking about authenticity or culture or wellness, there's no a common agreement on what that word means. And one way I heard this, and I thought it was just brilliant, that one way you can tell if a word is a floating signifier or it has become a floating signifier is that if you can picture it on a Forever 21 t-shirt. And I thought that was hilarious because, yeah, wellness is something that you can picture on a Forever 21 t-shirt, like just as well as you can say authenticity or culture. These are yoga. These are all words that no longer mean what they used to mean and have kind of lost their emotional punch. Oh, I see. Sue said, what is she needs a laughing reaction. RXN is reaction. Okay, got it. Thanks. I need a laughing reaction. I know. You know what would work here? If you could put in emoji in the comments, that would be really helpful. Anyway, thank you, Sue. I appreciate that. Any other words that we need to put on the list? I had culture and authenticity. Here's another one that was nominated by people pre-show, checking in. How do we feel about checking in?
That gives me hospitalization flashbacks, so I don't like that one.
What would you replace it with, though?
Well, it would depend on the context. Are you just like if you want to, find out if your great aunt is okay? I mean, you can say, I'm saying hi when you're just like you are checking in, welfare check or something like that. But if I can say checking in to my son, but that means, are you doing your homework like you promised?
I think the objectionable part about checking in is how it was routine at the beginning of a Zoom meeting. Let's do our check-in. Or
right.
It was almost always preceded to let's just check in. So it was always a just check in. Like let's get through this shit before we get to like, okay, we've kind of diminished the check-in potential. Can we just start doing some chit chat to begin with and see where that goes, or play a game to begin with and see where that goes? Making it this formal. Now we have to talk about our emotional state for 5 minutes before we can dive into work was starting to get pretty old, probably in April, May timeframe of last year. Just my thought. What do you think about checking in, or do you still love it? Okay, look it. We've got a smiley face. Got it. Thank you.
Wait.
So that's a quick reaction of laughing, so I appreciate that. So she's got a smiley face too. Okay, it'll show on the replay. That's fine. Cool. So what do we do instead of saying check in? Do we just start talking to people and chit chatting, or what do we do? Because that was the comment of like, what can we do other than saying we're checking in?
Your meeting, if it's a work context, or if it's like, I think we had check-in conversations, going back to 2020. But I mean, it's just like it was a substitute for coffee.
Okay. And here's another.
Our coffee meetings were check-ins, when you think about it.
It really was, but we would meet and say, hey, what's going on? And we wouldn't particularly have an agenda. The whole meeting was actually a check-in. And we didn't say, okay, we have to cover this list of, I need to understand where Scott is at emotionally or where Elizabeth is at emotionally. It just came out through chit chat.
Yeah. And the check-in that kind of like, has the, the aura that, we wouldn't just get together and have coffee. Then it's like it implies that there's going to be, no, really, how are you?
Oh, God, I showed a picture of a conference room that I was meeting in with people, and it was just so splendid. It was just the anti-conference room. It was Victorian, and these walls with gilt framing and, silk wallpaper. And I said, there's no Wi-Fi in here either, because they want it to be a more intimate experience where people are not on computers. Nothing pre-1950s was allowed in this conference room. And I was telling somebody about that, and I showed the picture, and they said, wow, it just looks like, you would just lean across the conference table and go, look, I have something important to say. I'm pregnant. It was the anti-conference room, but it really, I rather like that. And I wanted to see more of that in the future of let's have conference rooms that aren't enabled with technology and see what falls out of that you could only do things like bring notebooks to write in and pens and not have PowerPoint. And honestly, it was a fantastic meeting to have that experience. And I'd really love to see more of those. And that would be a great way to do it instead of a check-in.
It's an interesting, I'm going down a rabbit trail a little bit, but I was thinking about this open environment that everybody's offices went to. It was like a nightmare for the pandemic, because then you were just literally able to spread very quickly to anybody around you. It makes you wonder if they are going to use this. What was that? Return to work. So RTW, is that acronym?
No, return to office. We've always been working. That was the other thing. You can't say it's return to work. We've always been working.
RTO.
Like, oh, okay. Right.
I wonder if you're going to get more people returning to the office if you actually build offices.
Yeah.
No more cubicles. Gone are the days of the cubicle. Gone are the days of the picnic table in the middle of the office that everyone sits at. Gone are the days of hot desking. Mm-hmm. Everybody's got to go back to have an office. I just wonder if we're going to see that as a trend. Sorry, that was my little rabbit trail.
Well, I think you saw this LinkedIn post I did way back when, and probably in 2020, but I thought the transition from Zoom meetings where the faces are stacked on top of each other is that one of the furniture companies here in Grand Rapids could build these office designs that look like the Hollywood Squares studio.
There's some innovations coming off in the office design front that I've seen, and it's more like a cafeteria, or a cafe style with all these little islands set up. Yeah. I did notice that people that were going back to the office, one thing that I thought was really telling is they were all Zooming in. Even if they were just having an inter-company meeting where they were all meeting in this, they went to work, they were still doing all their meetings via Zoom from their own offices, at which point they were throwing up their hands and saying, why are we even back in the office? We could be doing this. So yeah, it's a whole lot easier to meet that way. They were a lot more focused. The part that took away from it is they actually had to leave their home environment and go to the office to do the work. So. Well, let's see what is going on in the comments again. Thanks for this. It's been fun. I have to go. Nice to see you. And thanks for stopping by. Really appreciate it. We're going to end right now with our last one. And this one was nominated by quite a few people that this should have been on the list and it wasn't. And I think even Elizabeth nominated this one. An abundance of caution. Can't we just use caution? Why do we have to have an abundance of it?
Or doesn't the pandemic just sort of apply that you're going to be in a state of caution? I saw this even in a headline recently, and I just thought, oh my gosh, it's just too far. Get rid of it.
We seem to have a glut of caution. The fact that we're talking about abundance, that tells me there's no supply chain issues.
Well, like fun, we haven't had supply chain issues. My life has just been nothing but one supply chain issues, and I've shown an abundance of caution.
Doesn't it a little bit though, like supply chain issues? It's like you're publicly admitting that you really didn't have a plan. Like you didn't. I mean, I get it in the beginning part of the pandemic, but once the pandemic was in full swing, you know you're going to have a delay in getting your materials, etc. So you shouldn't be saying, well, we can't ship this. It should have been, you're not going to get this for 6 months or 8 months or 10 months. Like it's not, it just has to do with, it's just going to take longer for us to build it or longer for us to get it.
Well, I think I commented on this when we were talking the other day, is that my dog barks dozens of times a day because there's always an Amazon truck or a FedEx truck or a UPS truck giving something to somebody, and I don't think it's caution. But we seem to have abundance of other things too. I think there seems to be like there are supplies, and they are making it to the end of the chain.
Yeah, I agree.
I have been beset with shortages and slowdowns by different shortages that have been caused because of the shifts and where things are going. So, yeah, there have been rather significant delays and stoppages. I have been at the receiving end of, these are the raw materials that we need. This is when you're going to get them. And then on the day that they're supposed to be there, it's like, well, you won't get them for another 4 months. And that's supposed to be okay. So that's not an abundance of caution. That's an abundance of, we don't know what we're doing. So that sort of thing is happening rather a lot in a lot of different industries. But I hope abundance of caution goes away, because I like Scott's comment the best. There's an abundance of stuff. It's just not an abundance of caution that's happening right now. Well, that's it for our banished words for 2022. Thank you for participating with us. And those were the words that Lake Superior State University says we should not be using in 2022. And we came up with some of our own. Thank you for letting them be there, and have a happy new year. Thanks for joining us. Scott, thanks for joining us. Elizabeth, thanks for joining us. Follow them. They're a lot of fun. They've got a lot of stuff to say. They post regularly on LinkedIn. And hope to see you throughout the new year. And I hope to see you commenting and participating and using these words with careful attention and caution. Bye, everyone.
Bye.